Alleluia. Om Mani Padme. Om. Allah.
Welcome to Harmony in Diversity. Norm Currie is my name, and today we have the pleasure of speaking with Louise Lang, Coordinator, Homeless Support Services for Anglicare Victoria. Louise, Anglicare is a huge organisation.
It is.
Which does some wonderful stuff. But I believe that your specialty is this parish partnership.
Yes, broadly speaking.
Broadly speaking, yes, you don't want to be nailed down.
I've been working for 5 years in the portfolio, yes, so I've got a bit of experience.
You're getting pretty close to a specialist.
Working on it.
Yes. What's your favourite aspect of this partnership? What is it that turns you on with that?
I guess it's an opportunity for the agency to work alongside sort of its source, because the agencies that Anglicare was formed from were all very much straight out of the Anglican Church. So it's a way to reconnect. Often people in churches can complain that an organisation like Anglicare may become too professional and then sometimes become removed from the source and its roots. So this is a real opportunity for parishes to work alongside with the agency. Yeah.
And is that done with you suggest with enthusiasm and commitment?
Yes, certainly. Particularly when a parish partnership is formed, there's a memorandum of understanding that's signed off in between the agency and the parish. So there's a lot of commitment got to come from both parties in that regard.
And who sets those partnerships up?
I guess it starts with a conversation between a parish and Anglicare Victoria. And then it would happen at a level much higher than I operate at. It would be with the leadership of Anglicare, the executive, with general managers, our CEO, and they would have those conversations with parishes and sort it out from, start that negotiation process.
And this is probably, as you've already indicated, this is above your level of expertise.
Level,
but
yes.
Have you got any idea what the criteria are for a parish?
Not really, because what I've seen of some of the partnerships, each brings its own flavour and its own relationship, and those memorandums of understanding can be quite different from partnership to partnership. So there's no hard and fast rules about it. I don't think it's for negotiation and discussion.
Well, what I'd like to do is doing a little bit of research. I've printed out this thing on the partnership, and in here there's a list, a very impressive list of activities which the parish partnership fulfills. Like one is adult literacy. How does that operate?
Well, where I used to work at Clayton at the neighbourhood house, Clayton being a fairly multicultural community, some time ago, in fact I think it was before the partnership with Anglicare was made, they decided that it was worthwhile having English classes for new migrants and new Australians, and I believe that's happened in a number of other places. There's a place at Broadmeadows that Anglicare runs, which isn't part of the portfolio, but again that's a women's house, and there's a lot of people from overseas there that they work quite closely with, and helping them understand and speak English and read English is a very valuable tool.
Absolutely, it would be. So, if I was to say that the community kitchen food bank, what would?
Community kitchens are something that's come out of Canada, and it's about getting people together. It meets needs on a whole lot of levels. It's about getting people together, preparing food together, then they sit down and eat it together. So it's not just like a cooking lesson, but it's getting people socialising sometimes. So often, if I tried to get one started some time ago for men, and often senior men who may have been widowed, didn't know how to prepare a meal, get them together, have a facilitator work with them, show them and work with them in preparing meals, something that they might be able to do at home on their own down the track. But not only having a meal, but then sit down, have that social time together as well. So it's about getting people together, getting people eating well, and becoming, I guess, self-sufficient in ways as well.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's very important, because particularly with older men, because you'd be aware the suicide rate goes over the top with older men. Something that just occurred to me as you were describing those two elements is, what's the mutual benefit, first to the parish and secondly to Anglicare Victoria, of these partnerships?
Well, I guess that can vary. In the work I've done, it's helping the parish to do a ministry in the area, and again for the agency, I guess it's reconnecting back with its grassroots.
Yes.
And you know, as parish partnerships and the community development, sometimes it's helping people in their communities, seeing and understanding some of their local needs, and there's an organisation we help facilitate how some of those needs can be met.
I had a look at the board and executive of Anglicare Victoria. There's only one nominated, well, the one I looked at, only one nominated religious there. I think he's a bishop or something on the one I looked at. Is that a fair? Are there other religious on that on the board and executive?
The executive would be the general managers, and that depends on their role. We've generally had general managers who have often been ordained Anglican clergy.
Yes.
Just recently, our new general manager is an Anglican, but he's worked closely with other churches in his more recent history. The broader board has got a large cross-section of representation from all the Anglican dioceses in Victoria.
Okay.
So there's a number of bishops and clergy and people from various church communities too.
Right. The purpose of that question is because sometimes you hear allusion to the fact that charity organisations like this have become secular and quite distinct, but the people are sourced from Anglican communities.
Yeah, and so I know the Archbishop of Melbourne's very involved in the organisation too.
Thanks very much, Louise. We'll go for a break. We're back in a few minutes. Welcome back to Harmony and Diversity. Norm Currie is my name, and we're speaking with Louise Lang. She's from Anglicare Victoria, Coordinator, Homeless Support Services. We've been discussing parish partnerships. I noticed that many of them seem to be focused in the metropolitan area. Is that typical, or is there rural work done?
Anglicare Victoria is a statewide organisation, and relating to the Anglican Church, the state is divided into, I think, 5 dioceses. There's Ballarat, Bendigo, Wangaratta, Gippsland and Melbourne itself. So there's a lot of work in the country diocese as well.
And that's organised through their own. That's Anglicare Victoria which organises that.
Again,
for
it's
them?
a partnership between the agency and the diocese. So often, you know, a bishop being the head of a diocese is very involved in the negotiation. So again, those bishops are involved in the board of Anglicare, and the parish partnership work takes on a local flavour depending on the local need.
With these partnerships, is there any involvement of religion per se, like meetings opening with prayers or?
There may be some. I haven't been to a lot, so it would possibly depend on what was happening. I'm just thinking the work I've done, not really. Occasionally, though, you know, we may have a service as a part of a worship service as a part of our work, and that's okay. just as long as we talk about that openly so people have an understanding of what may be happening. But we don't do the Christian stuff too much in that sort of sense. We're there about getting a job done, so if it's adult literacy, that's what it's about.
That's what it's about, yep.
Other emergency relief, you don't normally pray with a client unless they may ask for it. That's fine. Again, it comes back to that chaplaincy kind of style of doing things.
Yeah. Sort of an arm's length, but doing the service.
Yeah, a lot of stuff's done. Certainly people are motivated by their faith, but know that how they approach the person is the Christianity seen in the action rather than the word.
Yes, one's minded of some rather potent quotations about that.
Indeed.
Now, your specialty at the moment is homeless.
Yes.
How does that present itself?
Can I say no 2 days are the same?
Yes.
But our services that we provide is firstly a breakfast program that runs 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So rain, hail or shine, public holiday or whatever, breakfast is happening. We operate out of St Peter's Anglican Church in East Melbourne, and we arrive there at 7 o'clock in the morning, set up, open the doors at 7:30 for the clients to come in. They have an hour and a half to enjoy each other's company, have coffee, cereal, toast, whatever else we've got going at the time, and we finish that at 9, pack up at 9:30.
And I believe that you've been doing that today.
I have.
Well, thank you for still being here.
That's okay.
What sort of people come for that service? Is it the same people? Or?
Most of the people we have, we see them often. Some come and go very briefly and we don't know them, where others are more long-term. And those who come, there's a broader definition of homelessness. So primary homelessness is those who are, sleeping in the parks, rough sleeping. There's secondary homelessness, which is couch surfing, and it sort of moves into a boarding house, rooming house sort of situation. Emergency housing comes into there, and then there's tertiary homelessness, which is towards the end of moving into transitional housing. And again, it's the rooming, boarding house stuff, which is probably a little more permanent. But because it's not a real permanent home for a person, and a rooming house, is a room. It's not a home.
No.
So we talk about homelessness in a broader sense of the word. And so where we have breakfast, we have a lot of people who are lodging in the nearer part of Fitzroy and around and those sleeping rough in gardens and the city, and they come to us for breakfast.
It's astounding, isn't it? That there are people who need to do that. But thank goodness there's people helping them.
Yeah, and we have about 50 to 80 people come on a daily basis.
Good. Okay, so you do the breakfast service. What else do you do for these homeless people?
After packing up at breakfast, we head over to a second site, which is based at St Mark's Church in Fitzroy. There's a community centre there that's been going for some time. Recently, in the last 3 years, the service has been focused on the homeless population. We open there at 11:30 and go through till 3. There we have showers, washing machines and dryers. We have a drop-in centre. People have the opportunity to get food parcels, to have lunch, to sit and relax if they need to, have tea or coffee, and we're able to do some other financial assistance to the clients there. Clothing vouchers to the local op shop, vouchers for prescriptions and a few things like that.
And would that be the same population as comes to the breakfast?
Similar.
Yes.
Not everybody goes to both sites, but we have quite a strong crossover between the two.
So on a rough sort of an average, you're probably helping 100 people a day?
Yeah, we probably are. Yeah.
7 days a week?
St Mark's is only Monday to Friday.
Oh, okay.
But yeah.
But the breakfast is 7 days a week?
Breakfast keeps on going, yes.
That's amazing. So we've got our drop-in centre. Then what happens?
Oh, I go home. No, we at the drop-in centre we try and help with referral. We've got some good relationship with other agencies like some community health services, and a little with some housing, and just try and refer people on and help them get more help. And we're only limited in what we can do.
Yes.
And a lot of people have health issues. So if we can get people to see them, to help them with what they've got to do, it's getting people moving on and hopefully getting into better situations.
Thank you, Louise. Talking about moving on, we've come to a need for a break.
Okay.
We'll be back in a moment. Welcome back to Harmony and Diversity. My name's Norm Currie, and we're speaking today to Louise Lang from Anglicare Victoria, and her specialty is parish partnerships. Parish partnerships, indeed, and you've described to us a very encouraging homeless service that you provide for upwards of 100 people a day. That's quite amazing. This list of parish partnerships has some interesting components which I'd invite you to comment on as we go through it. Things like community arts and craft. Yeah,
I know at Wangaratta they've done some fairly major projects. Where I used to be at Clayton, we had an art therapy group. And that involved people. It was a HAC, which is a home and community care funding to it, and so that was for some people who might be marginalised in the local community, whether it be through a disability, mental health. We had a lass who had an acquired brain injury. So people a bit on. We had a lady who was in her 90s who loved coming to the class, and being an older person, couldn't always get around. And that art class was operated, everybody was treated as equals by the teacher. She's an absolutely fantastic lady. And people she could bring out the best in them, which was fantastic. So some work was mosaic work, some work was, canvas work. She did all sorts of things, used all sorts of mediums. And again, it's building self-esteem, it's making people feel included. So those sorts of things are really great.
Yes, and art therapy and music therapy, those two are quite powerful, aren't they?
We, in fact, actually had the same lady working for a while with some of our clients at our drop-in centre, and they've done some fantastic mosaic stuff. It's just wonderful.
It's extraordinary,
and
isn't
to see some fairly tough blokes getting stuck into doing something creative, it was a beautiful thing to see.
Yes, indeed. Now, you've mentioned, I just noticed, this community contact centre. That's the one that is that the drop-in centre, or is it something different?
Drop-in centre, and I think in the site where I was at Clayton, we had various things happening in the week because it was a bit like a neighbourhood house. There were the English classes, sewing groups, computer classes, the art group. They had a community lunch. So there's opportunity for people in the community to be involved in all sorts of different ways and do things. A
lot of these, as you mentioned, are centred around community houses. That community house, whose resource is that? Is that part of the Anglican? Probably again varies. Where I was at Clayton, the house we were in used to be the vicarage, so the parish decided to put the vicarage aside for that particular building aside for the work, and then the vicar had a second property that he lived in off-site. So we were actually on the church property, in the church grounds, able to work with the parish and just really work alongside with people. Yes. Yes, it really belies the fact that there's an allusion to the fact that the churches actually are losing influence and are irrelevant. This is actually an indication that they're not losing influence and they're not irrelevant, certainly in this context. Absolutely. I know Archbishop Philip Freer, who's the head of the big church in Victoria, he's recently
encouraged churches to become more relevant to their community,
Yes.
to be involved at community level, to be involved with agencies like Anglicare, like the Brotherhood of St Lawrence, and those sorts of things, so that they don't have the focus of being just church, but about community.
And my finger's pointing at one on this list here, which probably relates to that in a big way, is the emergency relief centres.
Yeah, well, that's a really important role that churches do out in the community, the providing of food and other needs for people in need. It's just... And the working poor are becoming more and more evident. Times aren't easy, and people just need assistance. It's, paying bills, water bills are going up, power bills are going up, there's not enough money for the food, all those sorts of issues.
Well, the Salvation Army, of course, have an enviable reputation for being present at emergencies and floods and fires, etc. Does Anglicare Victoria, through the centre, do that sort of work when they're called on?
The emergency relief in that sense is that just that everyday need that families have to make ends meet, rather than emergency events.
The big
guess,
yes. Well, thanks for explaining that. And you already alluded to it, but it's certainly in this current climate, and probably any current climate really, financial counselling. What's that look like? Is that doing people budgets or what?
It's helping people budget. Some emergency relief work is done alongside with the financial counsellors. So if someone comes a little too often in a short period of time, it's suggested that they look into the financial counselling, help them with budgeting. Sometimes people present with huge bills that, maybe a power bill or a gas bill, and they've got no idea how to deal with it, and because it's become so big, it's just too hard to deal with. So often they can come to a financial counsellor. The counsellor get in contact with the companies. There are hardship clauses that companies have, but sometimes it's just so big and overwhelming that a financial counsellor can actually help put a stop on that bill and just help the person budget and deal with it and get it done, rather than having the threat of power being cut off or, whatever happening. So financial counsellor are able to really step in and help people with an issue and then help them work towards problem solving those issues.
Yes, you've mentioned water and power, and power is a big issue. There's a lot of discussion about that at the moment. Have you got any understanding of what sits behind the main thrust for these people becoming in need of this emergency funding?
Well, sometimes it's just, the money they have just doesn't make the distance in a weekly or monthly budget. And people do try. A lot of people might sling off about people who are welfare dependent, and sometimes they're just really struggling to live life. If they've got a low income, it is a battle. It doesn't cover everything, and they just need help. So particularly financial counselling, if they can help them to understand that, that's something they can move on with.
They're the people euphemistically referred to as battlers. And we'll see you next week.
Baha'u'llah, Shanti Om, Allahu